Welcome, everybody, to the Total Human Optimization Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about eggs. There's so many different types. Where do we start? We got free range, cage-free, pasteurized, pasture-raised. What do they all mean? And what is it all about? So I have to bring in an expert. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jason Jones, president of Vital Farms. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with Vital Farms. Let us know a little bit about the history. I know you guys started in 2007 here in Austin. Tell us about your practice a little bit, what Vital Farms aims to do, and what makes you guys a little bit different.
Well, sure. Yeah, we got our start here in Austin just a few years ago with the idea of, hey, we need to produce better food than we had available to us at the grocery store. So Austin's a natural place to do that. People are pretty conscious eaters and have always supported us in our growth from a young company to where we are today. But yeah, we wanted to produce the best egg possible. And for us, that's centered on letting them live like they normally would. You know, animals like to move around outdoors.
Yeah.
And so
I think
that's what we did.
That's one thing. Like people, I think these days are really paying more attention to where their food is coming from.
Exactly.
You see it all nicely wrapped in the grocery store, and you have no clue of the process it took to get there, especially in the case of animal-based products, what kind of life the animals had. And I think science has shown that the way the animals are treated actually has an effect on the product that you're getting. So there's so many different types of eggs, and I was looking at a chart you guys had on your website that shows how much space does a happy hen need, and I knew that there was a difference, but I know
the answer now, right?
But I was shocked. I was completely shocked by the difference. So before I got educated on eggs, I thought, hey, as long as I'm buying cage free, I'm cool. That's as good as it's gonna get. Right?
Yeah, it sounds like a step in the right direction, which you could argue it is, but it's actually not going very far.
All right, but this figure is staggering. So pasture-raised, tell us what that term means. Because people get confused with pasteurized, I think, because I get confused saying it too. So tell us what's the difference between pasteurized and pasture-raised.
Well, what we mean when we say pasture-raised is distinct from cage-free or free-range. And it really has to do with the lifestyle of the bird. You know, a chicken in nature is outside, roaming, foraging, up in trees if there's any available. And that's the existence we want to provide for our girls, as we call them. They're working hard for us. So at the very least, we ought not torture them. You know, it starts there. And unfortunately, most of the eggs that are produced here in the U.S. are done that way. You know, it's not a very nice existence. So we wanted to approach this, with respect and, conscious of, hey, these are sentient beings working hard for this superfood that we get out of them several times a week. And so pasture-raised, we wanted to define that standard ourselves. It was out there in the market, but only loosely defined. So we've tried to put some definition around it. And we mean the birds are outside every day, year-round. So we couldn't do this in Minnesota, for example. It'd be hard to pasture raise anything in February in North Dakota or places like that. But it's similar to a grass-fed beef program where not only are they outside, but what's outside and what they're foraging composes a large part of their diet.
Okay.
And so it's an ingredient in the product that we're making. They're on a rotational grazing program where they move around the farms, and I think they have it pretty good. And you're right, it makes a better egg in a lot of ways.
Okay. So the figure that I have here, it says around 100 square feet.
108 square feet per bird.
Per bird.
Yeah.
Now, compared to cage-free, which is a foot squared.
Right, and that's not even the worst. Conventionally,
a foot is like my laptop computer. That's cage-free.
It's a sheet of notebook paper.
That's
what you have to yourself for your entire life, right?
Whereas the pasture-raised, that's about a standard cubicle office, maybe more.
Yeah, the graphic we have, and we've got it on our website if anybody's interested. Facebook page and that. But when you see it represented and that's
Mm-hmm.
mathematically correct, right?
Okay.
Those proportions are true. A bird will consume about 20 square feet
Mm-hmm.
of pasture vegetation, whatever's growing
Okay.
outside, in a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not on 108 at any given time, but that's enough to rotate them around every couple of weeks so that by the time they're back to the place they started, the grass has grown back and there's good green stuff to eat again.
Okay, so the natural diet of a hen or chicken
Mm-hmm.
is just bugs, whatever they find on the ground, any specific type of grass, or
Yeah.
it's just anything.
So it's funny how on some egg labels you see the term veg fed, right?
Exactly.
Because that's not what was intended. They'll eat just about anything. They do forage worms and grasshoppers and things like that, but most vegetation they'll eat. Some of our farms, they may have mustard greens growing
Okay.
in the wintertime, like here in Texas. So they'll eat that. And by the way, that translates through to how the egg looks, tastes, as well as the nutritional profile. So, they are omnivores, and we do. A lot of people think that we only let them forage pasture or whatever's outside. They could live that way just fine, but they wouldn't lay very many eggs. So we do provide a supplemental grain-based feed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the animal that we have today. They've been selectively bred over, many decades to kind of require that in their diet. They came from Asian jungle fowl, and we've manipulated them into quite efficient producers today. And to do that, they need a bit of corn and some other things. So that's available to them. But having a salad buffet outdoors every day, they're happier, they're healthier. The product we get from them is too. And as you mentioned earlier, people are looking for food that's produced consciously, and they're willing to pay a little more for it. And that's what's allowed us to be successful and to grow.
Okay, so the cheapest egg you can buy in the market, the caged egg that's going to be really, really cheap. They're bleached white. They're you can buy them in bulk, and they don't cost you very much.
Doesn't have much flavor either.
What is happening? What is happening to those hens and chickens that they're using? What's going on for that chicken's life? I imagine it's not it's not very nice.
It's pretty grim.
Okay.
Depending on which statistic you cite, call it 90% of eggs produced in the U.S. today are from chickens who are crammed into cages. That is a conventional $1.50 or $2 dozen of eggs.
Never leave the cage in their lifetime.
No. Well, they move into the laying house when they're about 6 months old. So before that, perhaps they were able to move about. But for their working career, if you will, from age 6 months to whenever they're finished, they're crammed usually 6 to 7 to a cage. They are so frustrated as anybody would be. I mean, if we were stuck in this room our entire lives, never got any fresh air, sunlight, much less anything good to eat, we'd be frustrated too. And so they're so irritated that they'll take that out on each other. And that's why they'll trim their beaks so that it's less of a weapon, because that's just how frustrated they are.
Because chickens are dangerous. They can be, I guess.
They can be to each other if they don't have a very nice life. I would be too. But they're standing on these cages, so oftentimes their feet or their talons, their toes can curl up around. It would be like us standing on a chain link fence our whole life.
Okay,
they can't stretch out. So it's pretty bad, and it's an artificial lighting, so they don't get fresh air or sunlight, and they look it. I think anybody who eats eggs ought to have to walk through one of those farms, or I'll use the term farm loosely. It's not pretty, but that's what you're supporting if you buy that type of egg.
Okay. And so nutritionally, what does that do to an egg? What's the nutritional difference that you guys have found between what I'll call a sweatshop egg
Sure.
and what is known as probably the best quality of pasture-raised, organic, non-GMO egg?
Yeah, so when the lifestyle that we provide is there, when they're getting exercise and eating salad all the time, um, naturally it follows that the product is different. What's inside that shell is more nutrient dense. It's higher in all sorts of vitamins like A, D, E, and there are others. We've even found vitamin C when we tested some of our eggs, and that's not anything that you'd get out of that factory situation. It's because they have a varied diet. It's like us. If we ate, Cocoa Puffs every day, and that's it, that's not a balanced diet for us. So anything we do is going to be compromised as well. So our eggs, too, pasture-raised eggs, are higher in omega-3s. They're a little bit lower in cholesterol. Not only nutritionally are they superior, but the eating experience is, I think, a big reason people are really passionate about what we do. And, high praise for us is, hey, these are like eggs from Grandma's place back when I was growing up. Or I haven't had eggs that actually tasted like anything. So, it's better for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. And you just brought up a pretty good point. So you see a lot of eggs that say with added vitamin, whatever, added omegas, whatever. What is happening in those eggs when they say added whatever?
Well, what's happening is it's a con. You're paying a little bit more for an egg when it would be a lot more efficient for you to just take an omega-3 supplement. What they're doing is putting supplements like flaxseed in the feed that the chickens eat.
Okay.
And so you put a bunch of flaxseed into the feed, and just a little bit translates into the egg, just enough for them to make that claim.
Okay.
So it's an inefficient way to get your omegas, I guess. Our pasture-raised eggs, they're also higher in those good omega-3s, and the balance of 3s to 6s is optimal. So it's pretty perfect little superfood when done well.
Yeah. So going back to the feed a little bit. So I know there's some distinctions, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if they're the thing saying vegetarian fed or something like that, if it's not organic, then there could be GMO feed, right? But if it has the organic label, then it's non-GMO feed for the chickens, correct?
Yeah, certified organic, really anything. Part of that program is that it can't be from genetically modified seed or ingredients.
Okay, so that goes all the way down to even the food they eat. Okay.
Yeah, so on an egg label, that's talking about not is the chicken genetically modified. That's not the case, at least yet. I mean, they're doing salmon and some other things. That's scary, but it has to do with the feed because it has a corn and a soy component, and those are there's GMO versions of those commodities, and so that's the veg-fed claim. Unfortunately, it begs the question: well, who's putting meat or animal protein in chicken feed? And there is an even darker underbelly to, I'll call it, factory egg production. That being, they'll take carcasses of chickens and actually grind them up, put them in the feed for a protein source for the hens that are laying. So that's why you have a veg-fed claim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know what to say about that.
Well, it is shocking, and unfortunately, you need a master's degree to grocery shop these days. There's a lot that we've got to get up to speed on. Michael Pollan says it well. You look across the aisles of a grocery store, and there's a bit of a false veneer over a lot of it. Most of it, probably. Everything, as we say, has a bucolic green rolling hill and a red barn on the package. Yeah. That's meant to give you a certain mental image that
came from
in reality
ain't
true. Exactly. Yeah. Everybody's a small family farmer. Yeah. It's a facade in a lot of cases, unfortunately. But with the level of education that's out there today, how many Food Inc. type documentaries are out there? You can go to Netflix tonight and watch 20 of them, and that's great because what we're putting into our bodies, it matters, and people are voting with their dollars and supporting companies like us, and it feels good to provide access to we'll call it real food.
Yeah. So there's a difference between the look of the egg. If you've grown up eating the cheapest egg on the market, it's going to be like a bleached white shell,
Pretty
and
pale,
the
yeah.
yolk's going to look a little bit different too.
Uh-huh.
So tell us about the difference in the look
Mhm.
of a natural organic pasture raised egg versus your bottom dollar egg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once you crack them, the difference is very apparent. And what we're going for is a richer, deeper color in the yolk that has everything to do with what that chicken ate in her lifestyle. So we're going for an orange color as opposed to like you said, the pale, pretty anemic looking, and I'll say flavorless eggs that come from those factory situations. So that's kind of our calling card. And high praise for us is when somebody posts, on Instagram or Facebook, look at this beautiful dark yolk. That's a sign that we're doing what we say we do on the farm every day.
Okay. And, there's also been a little bit of change over the last several years. Before, people used to worry a lot about cholesterol and fat and think that automatically translate into heart trouble for you.
Yeah,
but
and now fat is our friend again.
Yeah, now there's a change. So where do you think that's coming from, and how has that affected you guys in the egg industry?
It's good for us, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bit of a stigma, unfortunately and incorrectly, around cholesterol for a long time. And it goes back a few decades. There were certain studies that were done that got a lot of notoriety, maybe one or two. But some new science has come out confirming what a lot of people feel like they knew already, that fat isn't bad for you. And in fact, cholesterol and fat and even saturated fat is quite important for us. Our brains are basically cholesterol. And one of the best things you can do for yourself is to make sure you're getting a lot of those good fats that's optimal nutrition, I think.
And for people listening, if you haven't made eggs in coconut oil before, that tastes amazing. I've tried all different types of oils, maybe some grass-fed butter too. That tastes really good. Making the eggs,
good call.
But coconut oil, that's my favorite for sure.
Yeah, every morning my breakfast is a coconut milk smoothie with usually 3 raw eggs, some chia and some other stuff. But
that brings up another question.
That's why my hair is so shiny.
Yeah.
Not sure why it's
well,
gray.
actually, yeah. I read somewhere, and this is not scientific fact. Do not take it as scientific. This is something I just read, but I read if you feed your dog eggs, it really helps their coat.
Yeah, I can tell you that's true.
Okay, right on. Straight from the man's. So, one question I had that just popped in my head, and that's something I've always thought about is so eggs obviously are not laid in a refrigerator, right? They're not laid in.
That's where they come from, right?
Yeah, right.
Our food comes from the store.
I mean, do you really have to refrigerate them? Is there a certain time, or can they just lay them out on the counter? I mean, what's the practice?
Yeah,
there?
Good question. That is actually a pretty U.S. specific phenomena, the refrigerating of eggs. When it comes from the chicken, it's really already in nature's perfect package. The eggshell is porous, and so stuff can get in or out. But when the chicken lays it, it has it's basically a film, or we call it a bloom in the business, and it basically seals off the shell, so nothing gets in, nothing gets out. If it's clean, there's no real reason logically that you'd need to put it through a washing process, and it's why in other countries, Europe or even Asia is the same way. You see unwashed eggs just out on the counter or out in a basket at the store because that bloom is there protecting it, and it's going to keep for months just fine. But the USDA, in their wisdom, they want us to put them through a washing process, and there's other things that go on, quality checks that are important. I'm not belittling that process, but it is a lot of trouble to basically put them through a car wash, make sure they're dried off, and then after you take that bloom off by washing it, that's why you've got to keep it in a cooler, is because you need that controlled environment so that it doesn't spoil quickly and lose its flavor and integrity inside.
Okay. So you just brought up something. What kind of regulations and inspections do you guys go through? I mean, do you go through a different process because of your claims as a pasture-raised organic company versus not so? What's the deal there with your inspections and regulations?
Well, a lot of people have a lot to say about the way we do things. That's true for any food producer, I think. But we deal with anyone from local health departments to the USDA, the FDA. On the retail shelf, you have to meet certain requirements. But the big ones I think you may be interested in are the USDA. They do certify the organic program here in the States, and that's actually really rigorous. There's rule of law behind this, right? And if we mess that up, it could get quite expensive for us, or even worse, people could go to jail if we're not keeping true to the standard, which is important. Consumers need to be able to rely on that GMOs aren't in those organic products, or pesticides, any other chemical inputs weren't part of that process at all. That's what you're getting when your egg is also certified organic, which is really the best we can do. On the welfare side, I guess it's possible for any egg company to put a lot of words, including pasture-raised, on there. But what we've done is work with Humane Farm Animal Care. You've probably seen their shield on a variety of products. It says certified humane.
Yeah, I noticed that on you guys.
Yeah, so they're there as an independent third-party certifier saying, yes, these guys are doing what they say. And for an egg label to have pasture-raised on it and bear the certified humane shield, that means they have also championed the 108 square feet per bird outdoors as one key metric, and then there's others. But they let you know that we're actually doing this stuff on the farm and not just putting it on our carton.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know how big did you guys start? I mean, were you just selling to local farmers markets, and then you expanded?
That's how it started, out of the back of a Subaru.
Okay, so in terms of eggs sold, maybe how much when you first started in the back of your Subaru, how many eggs were you selling a year compared to now?
Per year, I'd need my calculator. We started out with one farm about 10 minutes south of here in South Austin with literally 20 chickens.
Okay.
And they weren't even like young chickens who were ready to go. We got them from somebody where they had already laid eggs for a while. So it started with 20 birds on one farm, and fast forwarding to today, our model is to find the best small family farmers we can across the country where it makes sense to do this, have the birds outside every day. And I think we have 90 farms today, over 6 short years. So, yeah,
and these farms are all independently only providing to you guys.
Yeah, farming is hard work, and when you're doing things like we are on the front end of the business, educating people, getting the distribution and the supply chain stuff right, we want pros to be working with us, taking care of our birds. And
so do these people all share the same philosophy? Because farmland is very lucrative, and I imagine it could be quite if you have something not ideal that wants to use your farmland, that's willing to offer you more money, I imagine that could be something they will have to think about. So do you have these farmers that are sharing the same mission and they're willing to use because to give a chicken that much room when they could do things on the contrary and add all that extra room to do things you
could grow GMO corn and
exactly to do all those things, what kind of farmer do you have to be to make that decision?
No shortcuts, first of all, and it's all centered on the well-being of the animal. And the way we think about it, we kind of have an internal shorthand in the company. It's like, well, are they believers or not? And we're looking for believers. It would be easy to, like I said, take shortcuts, because it's farming this way. You're actually farming. As a farmer, you're responsible for the stewardship and well-being of an animal, and we think that's a pretty heavy thing. it's not sticking your head in the barn and flipping a switch so that the feed comes on and doing that twice a day. No, you're taking care of animals here, so they've got to buy into that. It's also a reason we try to pay our farmers industry leading pay. Mm-hmm. Because we want them to stick around and we want them to grow with us. We have some farmers who started out with one flock of birds, and now they have 3 or 4. It's one of the things that we're most proud of. Our model features family farmers, right? And we're proud that they do well. And it's the average age of the U.S. farmer is actually pretty old, but we've got a lot of farmers who are actually quite young. Mm-hmm. They're in their 20s, and this is what they want to do with their career. And so it feels good that we have a model that works for them, and you can make a career out of farming again. That's a change, is over the decades since, everything really expanded pre-World War II and farms got to be many tens of thousands of acres. It's hard for a small producer to really have a place, but they do with Vital Farms, and we're very much proud of that. We know we get a better product because of that. And back to your question, they produce to our guidelines, so they've got to kind of sign up to do things our way, which we've tested with an awful lot of trial and error and cutting our teeth. But one thing we want to do as we go on is let people have even more of a window into, hey, this is where your food is coming from. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's Vital Farms, yes, but it's this farmer and their 2 kids, and they get to live and stay on the same property as their chickens and take care of them, and that's why your breakfast was so good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think when people go to the grocery store, and especially if they're not super educated on the differences between the products, mm-hmm. They see the price tag, and they're like, an egg's an egg. Hey, this one's brown too. Hey, it's cage free. It must be the same thing. What's really the difference? And they see maybe $2-3 versus I think your pasture-raised egg costs somewhere between $5 and $7, somewhere around there.
Anywhere from $5 to about 10.
Okay.
It depends on if it's organic or not. On top of that, and how far it traveled.
So you can imagine somebody in the grocery store kind of getting a little scared of that price tag.
Sure.
Right. So what is, I mean, I know you guys don't take any shortcuts, but if you had a plan to bring those prices lower, is there anything that you can do without taking shortcuts, that's not, that's going to help lower that price in the long run in the future?
Yeah. It requires more of a commitment from the shopper when they're used to paying $2, right? Okay. To ask them to pay $6. So we think about that a lot. And one of the things we try to do is increase the access to this level of good food that we should be eating to as many places as we can. And we've done things like sell like a medium egg, because they don't all come out large. So we can do it that way, as well as varying the feed. Not all of our chickens are fed certified organic feed. We have other levels of feed quality, and that's one of the biggest costs that you have, maybe the biggest when you're doing this. And so if you can cut out some costs there, it translates through to the shelf. And some of the change that we're working with too, grocery retailers, they it's not just at Whole Foods anymore.
Yeah.
That's where we started, and they'll always be tremendously important to us. We give them a lot of credit because they took a swing on a new type of egg, and they were a little bit scared too when they saw that they would need to sell it for $6.
Yeah.
But I think the model has been proven, and we know now that people will pay a little bit more for something so important as what we're literally putting into our own bodies to keep us alive. Whatever we eat is making you a little bit healthier or a little less, and so it matters, and people see that anymore is more of an investment than we used to, I think, when it was primarily about convenience maybe, or there's a high price to cheap food.
Yeah.
And people get it.
I think that's the moral of the story. Everybody should know, when they can, where their food comes from. You go out to eat, it's hard to know where your food is coming from. But when you go to the grocery store, you're in full control. you have the ability to do your research and find out exactly where the food you're buying is coming from, how it's raised, how the animals are treated, and that all translates into the nutrition and to what your body gets from it. And that's what we do here at On It with our supplements. You know, some would say that our supplements are pricey. I mean, I make a modest salary, and even for me, it would be a little bit on the higher side if I didn't get them for free all the time. But I think people are making that change to, especially in my generation. I'm 29. I'm 29. I'm not 29. I'm about to be 31. I'm 30 years old, and I'm just in denial that that I'm out of my 20s and I'm not playing guitar on a stage anymore. And now at work. But I think our generation is changing things a little bit. Do you get that same sense that this generation that's coming up is really paying attention to what they're putting into their bodies?
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz around millennials. They are soon to overtake, if they haven't already, the boomers as kind of a segment of the consumer base in the U.S. And they're awfully educated. So they're looking for and willing to pay for quality. I also see that, though, across, call it, target customers of ours. When we were just starting, it was, as you said, we had our 10 cases of eggs a week, and we would take them to the farmer's market or try to peddle them to local restaurants, and we still sell to some restaurants today. But that's how it started before we got into grocery stores. And working the farmer's market out at Barton Creek, I would have customers who may be a single mom, and she would actually tell me about the sacrifice. Like, well, I'm not getting the $4 Starbucks latte, but I can put that money toward the best quality protein with all these other goodies, the omegas and the other vitamins. So people are conscious today. We view them as very conscious consumers, and we treat them as such, tell them anything they want to know. There's some realities when you're farming. I don't want to sound Pollyanna-ish or anthropomorphize the chicken so much.
I don't understand any of those words.
There's a reality. Well, what I'm saying is, it's not like we have a retirement village with a bunch of chickens who are, playing shuffleboard the rest of their life. There's realities to what we do, but I think if you approach it respectfully and are very honest with people, that's part of the education process.
Sure.
And being authentic in describing what you do. And people who choose to eat protein from animals have accepted a lot of those things, and they enjoy seeing through to what you said.
Yeah.
Where's my food coming from?
Exactly. And as Aubrey would say, this is your vehicle on this planet.
And you've got one of them.
You got one of them. Feed it the right gas. You have the ability, and everybody, a lot of people make their decisions based on price of things, but when it comes down to it, like you said, people spend $4 on a Starbucks, easy. That's not even a question, and that's filled with who knows what.
Well, that's my routine, or
that's just normal.
Yeah.
But spend that extra $4 on something else. The grass-fed beef.
Yeah,
the organic chicken.
Compared to other proteins, eggs are still really reasonable, even quote expensive eggs like ours.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Jason, that's pretty awesome. So, I mean, obviously, you guys you're growing still, and you're all over the place. Are you all over the country now?
We are. Yeah,
okay.
We're in every Whole Foods.
Okay,
and that's kind of where we started, was Whole Foods and other natural grocery chains like Natural Grocer or Mother's and Jimbo's out on the East Coast, on the West Coast. But it's happened even quicker than we thought it would have, the move into mainstream groceries. So you can buy our eggs at H-E-B, and have been able to for years now. Great Texas retailer.
H-E-B is a grocery chain in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Wonderful store. Kind of a model that a lot of others look to, as well as Kroger's and Safeway's. We've been in Target for a few months now, which is just a lot of fun, and makes us feel good that this has happened so quick. It's some of the vernacular we've been talking about. This is it's mainstream now, and it just feels good to get up and advance that, and give more people access to better quality food.
Right on. Well, people, do your own research. You can check out, I think it's vitalfarms.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can check out vitalfarms.com and see what they're all about. But I encourage you, do your own research on all the food you buy, all the groceries you buy. Do your research before you hit the grocery store. Know what you're putting in your bodies. I'm not perfect. I'll be the first to admit it. But, we're all working to be better people in health and emotionally and whatever else we want to be better in this world.
All of it. We want it all.
We want it all. So thanks, Jason.
Thanks for having
Thanks, everybody,
me.
for listening. And until next time, thank you very much. Later.